Hello and welcome. Welcome to Input English. Today I'd like to discuss the 5 reasons that right now is the best time to learn English by far. So let's get started. So the first reason is actually a philosophical reason, and it's pretty simple. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist yet. It's actually the present that is the only thing that we can manage. It's the only thing that we should focus on because it's the only thing we can change. Number 2, comprehensible input is nearly 50 years old. It's been around long enough that it has matured a lot, and it is a super useful tool. I would submit that for learning English, there's nothing better than comprehensible input because English is a mess. English has complex grammar, a lot of exceptions, the pronunciation is unpredictable, and we have collected a lot of words from a variety of languages. So simply put, English is a mess. Now, it's a beautiful mess. It's very much worth embracing, but other methods of studying it other than comprehensible input make no sense to me. Now, comprehensible input dates back to the late 1970s. Stephen Krashen coined the term and produced a great deal of knowledge from his work in this field. But other people have their fingerprints on comprehensible input. For instance, Marvin Brown. Marvin Brown, I've mentioned in other videos, he was a linguist. His area of expertise was Thai, and he wound up teaching at the AUA school in Bangkok. He was profoundly influenced by the work of Stephen Krashen, but because of his position in this language school, he was able to test the methods and adapt the methods. So he developed his version called automatic language growth. We discussed that in other videos. Comprehensible input is now recognized worldwide as a great way to learn languages, and I would submit that it is the best way to learn English. The third reason that this is a great time to learn English is because you are a non-zero language learner. You're not starting from zero. Worldwide, people study English in school, but a majority of these folks are left at a level that is not satisfying. They want their listening to be better, they want their speaking to be better, they want a more useful version of English, but they're not starting from zero. If you can understand this video, you're not starting from zero. You know English because I don't make beginner videos. This is an advanced beginner or intermediate English level video. The fact that so many learned English in school means that a lot of people are not starting from zero. They're starting from where they are. The fourth reason that this is the ideal time to study English and bring your level up is because of the concept of the third source. Traditionally, we learned from 2 sources. We learned from our family and we learned from our schools. In recent decades, a third source has emerged, and that is, it is now possible to learn things using these resources that are now available that simply did not exist in the past. There is a long list of these resources. We're going to go through them. The first and most obvious is YouTube. If you want to learn something, it is super common to go to YouTube and put it into the search window and get some resources so that you can learn something. And that is certainly the case learning English. YouTube is an amazing resource for learning languages, but it's not necessarily easy to navigate because there are so many choices and there are so many distractions. There is a lot of material on YouTube that purports to be comprehensible input, but on closer examination, it may or may not be worth you spending your time watching it. With language learning on YouTube, there are videos like this one, which are dedicated toward language learning, and the videos are made to be understood by language learners. And then there's all the native content. YouTube has a tremendous amount of material made by native speakers for native speakers with no concerns about the language learner. So in order to consume that input, you need to have a level of listening comprehension high enough that you can make sense out of that input. A similar resource that basically didn't exist in the past is the audiobook. Audiobooks are now widely available and they are wonderful for language learning. Most audiobooks are made by native speakers for native speakers with no regard to language learners. So for most audiobooks, you have to have a level of listening comprehension sufficient to make sense out of the audiobook. Once you get to that level, they are tremendous for giving you access to the literature available in English. They expand your ability to get input into places like your car or public transit, places where other methods of input might be impractical. You can't watch a video or read a book when you're driving a car, but you can listen to an audiobook. And if you have a significant commute, you can leverage that time using audiobooks. In parallel with audiobooks, we should talk briefly about podcasts. They are one of my favorite ways of getting input. The availability of podcasts has exploded. And there are podcasts for language learning, but there are also podcasts made by natives for natives without regard to language learning. Online streaming services open up huge amounts of input. Most of this is for people with a high enough comprehension level that they can make use of that. I want to specifically mention National Geographic. They make videos. The language of the narrator is usually very cleanly spoken English that's easy to understand. As you know, there are huge numbers of apps designed for language learners. And most of them I don't use. Most of them I do not recommend. But there's one that I would recommend, and that is Link. L-I-N-G-Q. Link is an app for language learning. I think they have about 20 different languages, English among them. And it's a really well-designed platform. It allows you to import media. It allows you to listen and read at the same time. It has an onboard dictionary that is well-designed so that if there's a word you don't know, you can just touch it on the screen and get a very brief definition that's a hint of the meaning. I find that when I use the Link app, I can use content that is higher than I would ordinarily be able to understand, because the words that I encounter that I don't know, I can quickly check and then move on. So I use Link to take advantage of a more advanced material that would not be useful to me as an audio only. While we're on the subject of reading, I should point out that the material for reading, particularly reading early in our journey, is much better than it used to be. The graded readers that are available are quite good. Really, the third source for learning actually already existed. I think back to when I was a student, my third source was the public library. It wasn't the school system, and it wasn't the family. So really, to be honest, the third source existed decades ago. However, it wasn't nearly as robust as what we have now with modern technology. I was fortunate to be within easy traveling distance to a very nice public library. However, there are people around the world who don't have that. That would be considered quite the luxury, but they may indeed have online access to extraordinary learning material. Our fifth reason that now is the best time to learn English comes to us from the field of cognitive psychology. During the decades that the concepts of comprehensible input were being massaged and improved and refined, the field of cognitive psychology was also working their magic on better learning methods and better understanding of human learning. I specifically mentioned the work done at UCLA by Professor Robert Bjork and his colleagues. We're going to go into great depth describing how this information has huge implications for us, the language learners. So those are the 5 reasons that this is the ideal time to get serious about learning English, bring your level up to the level you desire using the resources available and comprehensible input. That's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I invite comments below, and I hope you join us in future videos. See you soon.